Today about 12:30, we were notified of a shooting at Cotton Creek Park, which is located off 112th and Stewart Street. When Westminster officers arrived on scene, we were informed that CMAT, which is our Auto Theft Task Force officers from Lakewood, Wheat Ridge, and State Patrol were involved in a shooting of an auto theft suspect. That suspect is deceased on scene. The 17th Judicial District investigative team will be investigating this incident for the officer-involved incident portion.
Can you tell us the gender of the suspect?
Male.
Anything that led up to this shooting that you guys know about?
So that's all part of the investigation at this point. Again, it was the Auto Theft Task Force, so they were investigating a stolen vehicle.
So who takes lead in the investigation of all this?
It'll be the 17th Judicial Critical Incident Team.
Was anyone taken into custody?
No. We have several witnesses that were transported to the police department. Again, the suspect is deceased here in the park behind us.
So can you say who shot at whom or what prompted the shooting?
So when officers were investigating the auto theft, they addressed the suspect. He turned around and pointed a weapon at them. The officers did fire their weapons.
And how many officers were there then at the time?
There were 4 officers.
4 officers?
Yes.
And all 4 fired back, is that correct?
Yes.
Did the individual end up shooting, or did he just brandish his weapon?
To my knowledge at this point, he only brandished the weapon.
Talk about the impact to the nearby school.
So the school was immediately placed on lockout. Once we were aware that we only had this one suspect, that was lifted. We do have a controlled release with that school right now. Parents can pick up their children with a photo ID at the front of the school beginning at 2:30. That's just a safety precaution because of the police presence. We don't want children and parents wandering into the scene at this point.
Is there anyone at large? Are you looking for anyone related to this? Okay.
No, there was only one suspect at the time.
And no one was taken into custody, just to clarify.
Right. We have several witnesses at the police department, but nobody was taken into custody.
I assume the officers ordered the individual to drop their weapon, or was they so quick that was not?
Well, that'll be part of the investigation. We don't have that information right now.
Can you talk about what the Auto Theft Task Force does?
I'm not familiar with that. Maybe the State Patrol can address that a little bit more familiar with you. Sorry.
You guys, do they need to inform you that they're in the area investigating something, or you didn't know they were here until they called and said there was a shooting?
It depends on the situation. Sometimes they'll notify us. Other times they just are investigating situations. We're police officers certified in the state of Colorado. That means we can take law enforcement action anywhere in the state. So.
All 4 of those officers are state troopers then?
No. 2 are state troopers, 1 is a Wheat Ridge officer, and 1 is a Lakewood officer.
Sure. What are the questions that need to be answered right now? What's still out there that's lingering?
You know, I don't really know. Again, it's an officer-involved shooting, so it's going to be a lengthy investigation into exactly what happened and to answer some of those questions that you had earlier.
No one was hurt, though, correct?
No one was hurt, I'm sorry.
No injuries, no one was hurt?
Other than the suspect, no.
Was the suspect pronounced dead on the scene?
Yes. There is a bicycle and a basketball. We do believe that this suspect at this point is an adult male. The bicycle and basketball were from a witness in the area. Just want to clarify that.
And do you believe that the suspect drove here in a stolen car? Or?
Yes.
So there was surveillance, I'm guessing, drove here, and this is where the confrontation occurred.
Right. That's part of what that Auto Theft Task Force does. So they investigate stolen vehicles and people associated with auto theft rings.
Where did the surveillance begin? Where do you believe this? How was this car first spotted, basically?
Again, that's part of the investigation. So they're going to be asking those questions of those officers and exactly what transpired.
But it was a stolen vehicle?
Yes.
Do you know from which city? Or?
I don't have that information, I'm sorry.
When you say an auto theft ring, presumably they're only investigating
to clarify what I said is that this task force investigates auto thefts and auto theft rings. Okay, I didn't specifically say that this was part of an auto theft ring. Yeah.
Are you able to share the make and model of the stolen vehicle at all?
We're not sharing that at this time. Thank you.
And you might have said it was the suspect alone at the time?
Yes. Yes.
And he did show a weapon?
Yes, he did brandish a weapon towards the officers.
Was it a gun?
I'm not going to specifically say what that is at this point.
So you can't say if it was a firearm or not?
I'm not going to at this point.
That's fine.
Did the vehicle hit anything? We heard there may have been like a crash.
No, not to my knowledge, no. The vehicle is parked in the park. Not in the park, in the parking lot of the park.
And that's where the confrontation occurred.
Yes. Anything else?
Was this suspect known was this suspect known as someone who was potentially armed and dangerous?
I don't have that information. Again, that's part of that task force investigation. So. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Can we throw the mics on you?
Absolutely. If you're all done with her, then by all means. Very limited information that we can speak of, but by all means.
I'm gonna. Hold on, just a sec. Give me just a sec.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's ours. This one's ours.
Quite a few. Is that working? I'm good just holding on to him, or however we need to.
Do you have room to hold one more? You want to
Sure.
put on your belt?
Absolutely.
Okay, do this.
Sure. Don't be shy.
And then there's one more to hold.
No, you're good.
Got it?
We'll do a mic check, make sure everybody's good. All right, everybody good? You need a mic check, or are we still rolling hot? All right.
Josh, correct?
Correct. I am Trooper Josh Lewis, Lewis, Colorado State Patrol.
I know that the district will be investigating this, but talk about what your agency's role is here.
And so very little can be said about what's obviously a very ongoing and active investigation in the early stages. But Colorado State Patrol is involved in multiple task force across the state, including this one, which is involved in the apprehension of both vehicles and auto thieves as well, on an individual and larger basis, to be said. And in this particular case, we did have 2 officers that were involved in tracking, following a vehicle in order to apprehend both the stolen vehicle and the suspect. And unfortunately, they were involved in a shooting that resulted in the death of one suspect.
Just to clarify, it was an officer from Lakewood, Wheat Ridge, and 2 from CSP.
Correct. There were 2 officers from Colorado State Patrol, 1 from Wheat Ridge and 1 from Lakewood.
Westminster is just here simply because this is where this is being investigated.
Correct. Based on jurisdiction, Westminster is conducting the actual investigation in terms of the officer-involved shooting.
Was the suspect being stopped here, or did the suspect just happen to pull over his car?
And based on the investigation, I don't know precisely what led the suspect to be here versus any other location. We understand in these type of situations, obviously the desire to try and find out all the officers involved. On behalf of Westminster, we appreciate their cooperation with the investigation and leading it. Our officers are obviously cooperating with all aspects of the investigation. We will be releasing the names and identification of the Colorado State Patrol officers. However, we cannot give a timetable to when that's going to be. Obviously, it's a very sensitive subject, and we want to make sure that the investigation is not hindered as a result simply by the release of their information.
And the status of your officers right now is what?
Right now, our officers are cooperating in terms of the investigation. They are being questioned, but obviously, emotionally, this is a very impactful event that happens. This is not something any officer wants to go through, but they are cooperating with all aspects of it. They are uninjured, and they are going to be taken care of in terms of their emotional status and in terms of their employment with us. Obviously, they are fully cooperative.
And protocol is for them to take a leave while this is going on.
Correct. During any type of administrative action, they will be placed on administrative leave.
How many are on the task force?
I could not tell you.
I mean, with four officers being taken off, will that impact the work with the task force, or?
And because it's a task force, it's not simply State Patrol. Obviously, we had these two members on it. We have other members, not just in the Denver metro area, but all across the state that participate in multiple task forces. So this is simply one task force that involves auto theft, but we obviously have other officers involved in many other criminal aspects all across the state. In this regard, there's a lot of different agencies that actually participate in these type of task force.
Truly, I don't want to make any assumptions here, but the point of the stop was to take this person into custody, I say.
Yeah, and what was going on that led up to this, I do not know.
But the goal was, but they were out to make an arrest.
They understand that this is a stolen vehicle, and that much is assured, and this was a suspect in that. In what they were hoping to accomplish, I could not say based on the investigation.
Do you have any idea how long this will be an active scene out here?
And I would have to refer that over to Westminster and their investigative
It'll
team.
be several hours. And just to be clear, well, that task force, it's made up of officers from the North Metro area. So there's a lot of officers on the task force. So this shouldn't impact daily operations of that task
Got it.
force.
Do you have an idea on the number of how many people serve on it?
I don't.
All right, so we'll hear from you maybe later today again, or tonight, or...
I don't know that we'll have any additional information. We'll put out a press release with all the information that we spoke about to you just now. If there's any additional information, it'll come out in a press release.
Okay.
And again, in regards to our officers, we will release their identities when we can, but there is not a timetable for